Can you help with the cleanup? I asked my mother-in-law, trying to be polite. She looked at me coldly and snapped, I'm not your real mother, clean up yourself without complaining, you're just a daughter-in-law. I froze in shock. Shelly's kind smile disappeared, replaced by a hard, cold stare. You're joking, right? I whispered, feeling my heart race. Why would I joke? Shelly replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The room felt tense, and I suddenly realized my perfect life was starting to fall apart. My name is Kathleen. I met my husband, Elijah, while working a part-time job as a student, and we quickly grew close. After 5 years of dating, we got married. We both worked at the same manufacturing company and led busy lives, but our busy days only made us stronger as a couple. No matter how late it was, Elijah always waited for me at the train station with a warm smile. His kindness made me feel happy and forget how tired I was. Life with Elijah was simple, but it felt perfect. Both my parents had passed away, leaving me a large inheritance. Elijah and I agreed not to use it yet, saving it for future needs. One evening, on our way home, Elijah said, Kathleen, my parents want to visit tomorrow, is that okay? I felt a little nervous but smiled. Of course, they're always welcome. Elijah's parents lived nearby and occasionally visited. We had a good relationship, and I thought of them as my own family. One day, during a visit, my mother-in-law, Shelly, suggested, Kathleen, Elijah, this house is getting old, why don't we live together? Soon, you'll have kids, and I can help with chores. My father-in-law, Bradley, agreed. He was cheerful and kind, but lately, he hadn't been feeling well. Elijah and I worried about him often. Living together seemed like a good idea. It would bring us closer as a family, and our home would be full of life. That sounds great, but this house might feel small for everyone. Let's figure out a way to make it work, I said. Elijah nodded, agreeing. Then Shelly added, Kathleen, you have that inheritance from your parents, don't you? Why not use it to build a nice, big house for all of us? Her words surprised me. I had never told her about the inheritance. It wasn't something I liked to discuss. Her suggestion made me feel uneasy. But looking at Elijah's hopeful face and his parents' excitement, I started to think maybe it was the right time to use the money. My parents would have supported something that brought us happiness as a family. Let's do it then. Let's build a beautiful house together, I said with enthusiasm. We decided to build a new two-family home. The construction went smoothly, and soon our new life together began. The house was full of laughter and warmth. I felt truly happy. After coming home tired from work, Shelly would always have warm food ready, and we'd sit down to eat together. My father-in-law often joined us, and we'd drink and chat late into the night. Every day felt special, and I thought I'd made the right choice living with them. But life doesn't always go as planned. My father-in-law's health slowly declined. It wasn't serious, but he decided to move into a nursing home because he didn't want to burden us. Even though he wasn't far away, the house felt quiet without his cheerful voice. Shelly and I visited him often, but we couldn't help feeling lonely. Around this time, Elijah had to go overseas for work. It's only for a little while, he said. It might be good for you to spend some time alone with Mom. I'm sure she's counting on you too. I could tell he was being thoughtful, and the days spent with Shelly were enjoyable. But one day, things began to change. Shelly suddenly handed me a huge shopping list. Wait, are you really buying all of this? What's it for? I asked, surprised. With a smile, she said, I'm having a little party with some neighborhood friends today. Can you help me? I agreed and went shopping with her. When we got back, Shelly asked, can you help with the cooking too? It felt like a lot, but I thought we'd have fun working together, so I helped. We finished the preparations, and soon guests started arriving. Then Shelly turned to me and said, thank you, we'll take it from here. I felt awkward and out of place, so I decided to go for a walk to pass the time. When I came back later, the party was over, but the house was a mess. Shelly was sitting on the couch, watching TV as if nothing had happened. I tried to stay calm and asked, can you help with the cleanup? To my shock, Shelly snapped, I'm not your real mother, clean up yourself without complaining. It's bold of you to even ask, considering you're just a daughter-in-law. I froze, unable to believe what I'd heard. Shelly had always been so kind, but now her warm smile was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp look. She continued, I was only kind to you because Elijah likes you. He cares about you more than me, and I've never liked that. I knew about your inheritance all along. I've pretended to be the perfect mother-in-law for years, but I don't need to anymore. I'm relieved it's over sooner than I expected. Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. I felt dizzy, barely able to stand. You're joking, right? I whispered, my voice shaking. I asked Shelly, hoping for reassurance. Instead, she smiled coldly and said, why would I joke? Even after you married Elijah, I never considered you part of the family. Thank you for providing this wonderful house. But from now on, you'll follow my rules. If you can't, then leave. This house belongs to us. Your room will be a guest room, and you can sleep in the storage space under the stairs. It's just big enough for you to lie down. That night, I cleaned up after the party. One day, I overheard Shelly laughing with her friends, bad-mouthing me behind my back. I felt so hurt and angry that I couldn't hold back my tears. The emotional toll became too much to bear, so I took a temporary leave from work, hoping to find some relief. But even staying home didn't protect me from her endless demands and harsh words. One afternoon, after finishing my chores, I hid in the storage space under the stairs to rest. That's when I heard Shelly come home with someone. It was Neil, a local man and one of Elijah's friends. Lately, Shelly and Neil had been spending a lot of time together, but I'd convinced myself they were just close friends. From the small gap in the storage door, I peeked out and froze. Shelly and Neil were kissing. My worst suspicions were true. She was having an affair with him in our house. Shocked and overwhelmed, I closed my eyes and covered my ears, trying to block it out. The next day, unable to stay in the house any longer, I decided to visit my father-in-law, Bradley, at the nursing home. He had always been kind to me, and I needed someone to talk to. Before I left, Shelly asked, "Are you going out?" "Perfect. I have friends coming over tonight, so stay out as long as you like." Her words stung, but I ignored her and left. When I arrived at the nursing home, Bradley immediately noticed my distress. As I told him everything, Shelly's affair, her cruel treatment, and the emotional abuse, he listened quietly, his expression filled with concern. When I finished, he spoke gently. "You've been through so much, but you're not to blame, Kathleen. I'm proud of you for coming to me. You're not alone in this. Elijah would be worried about you, too. I'll handle this, so don't worry." He stood up slowly and reached for my hand. "Let's go home together. Are you okay? Please don't push yourself too hard." His kindness brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you for caring about me, but for your sake, I'll endure this," I replied softly. We walked side by side on the way back, his presence giving me the strength I needed. When we arrived at the house, I immediately noticed visitors' shoes scattered by the door. Clearly, they didn't expect me to return so soon. Bradley didn't hesitate. He walked straight inside to the room where Shelly and Neil were. Shelly froze in shock, her eyes wide, while Neil panicked completely. Without a word, he staggered and jumped out of the window barefoot. If he had nothing to hide, he wouldn't have acted that way. Bradley turned to Shelly, his voice calm but firm. "Shelly, I've heard a lot from Kathleen. I want to hear your side of the story." Shelly hesitated, then mumbled, "I'm sorry about the affair, but it wasn't entirely my fault. Neil approached me first." Bradley sighed deeply and shook his head. "The real issue here is how you treated Kathleen." Before Shelly could argue, Bradley placed divorce papers on the table. "Let's resolve this properly. I want you to leave today." Shelly's face turned pale as she protested. "But it only happened once. How can you hand me divorce papers over this? It's not fair to blame me alone. Why are you believing her over me?" Bradley's tone remained steady as he replied, "I consider Kathleen my own daughter. As a parent, I can see her pain and feelings clearly. It's a shame you can't see that." Shelly lowered her head, unable to respond. Bradley's voice grew firmer. "Leave this house today. If you're still here tomorrow, I won't hesitate to call the police. Do you understand?" Shelly collapsed to her knees, defeated. That night, on Bradley's advice, I stayed at a nearby hotel. When I returned the next day, Shelly was gone. I later heard she moved into a small, run-down apartment in a nearby town. With her savings drained on expenses for the nursing home, she now worked several part-time jobs just to survive. A few days later, Elijah came home. When I told him everything that had happened, he looked shocked. "I had no idea any of this was going on. I'm so glad Dad was here for you," he said. From then on, our lives slowly returned to peace, and in that big, quiet house, I couldn't help but feel hopeful. Maybe it won't be long before we welcome a new member to the family.